Ever laid in bed replaying a conversation from 3 days ago? Or second-guessed a decision until your brain feels like it's running on a treadmill? You're not alone. Overthinking isn't just a bad habit. It's wired into the way our minds work. But why? Today, we're diving into the psychology of overthinking and why we just can't stop. HumanPsyFacts, the psychology of overthinking, why we can't stop. Overthinking is what psychologists call rumination, repetitive, unproductive thought loops. It can look like obsessing over the past, catastrophizing the future, or analyzing every little detail until you're emotionally drained. And guess what? Your brain thinks it's helping. When we overthink, it's often an attempt to gain control over our feelings, other people's reactions, or unpredictable outcomes. But instead of solving problems, overthinking just traps us in anxiety and indecision. So what causes it? Let's talk about the amygdala. This small, almond-shaped structure deep within your brain is your personal alarm system. Think of it as the brain's central command for all things related to threat detection and emotional responses, especially fear. It's constantly scanning your environment, both internal and external, for anything that might signal danger. The amygdala's primary function is to ensure your survival. Thousands of years ago, when our ancestors roamed the earth, it played a crucial role in protecting them from real, tangible threats, like lions, saber-toothed tigers, and other predators lurking in the shadows. It was a matter of life or death, and the amygdala was always on high alert. But fast forward to today, and the threats we face are often very different. Instead of physical dangers, we're confronted with social anxieties and digital dilemmas. Now, the amygdala might go off when someone leaves us on read, triggering a cascade of anxious thoughts and interpretations. When the amygdala senses uncertainty, whether it's a looming deadline or an ambiguous text message, it doesn't differentiate between a real threat and a perceived one. It floods the body with stress hormones, like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you for fight or flight. This surge of hormones signals to the brain, something's wrong, fix it. We need to analyze the situation, identify the problem, and find a solution immediately. So you keep thinking, and thinking, and thinking, trying to resolve the perceived threat, often getting caught in a loop of repetitive thoughts. Your brain starts scanning for answers, replaying situations in your mind, analyzing every detail, and predicting potential outcomes, both positive and negative. It's like a detective searching for clues to solve a mystery. But this constant mental rumination doesn't always lead to clarity or resolution. In fact, it can often have the opposite effect. It just keeps the stress cycle going, trapping you in a state of anxiety and uncertainty. From an evolutionary standpoint, this tendency to overthink, while sometimes detrimental today, actually made a lot of sense. It was a survival mechanism that helped our species thrive. The humans who thought more about potential dangers, worried more about the future, and prepared more meticulously for various scenarios were, statistically, more likely to survive and pass on their genes. But in today's complex and rapidly changing world, we're primarily dealing with emotional threats, social pressures, and abstract anxieties, rather than immediate physical dangers. These threats often manifest as fear of failure in our careers, fear of rejection in our relationships, or the pervasive fear of simply not being good enough in a world that constantly demands more. The brain, however, hasn't quite caught up with the times. It still reacts as if your life is on the line, even if it's just an awkward email, a critical comment, or a late reply to a text message. That deeply ingrained survival instinct keeps you looping through thoughts, constantly scanning for potential danger, even when there isn't any real threat present. It's a challenging cycle to break, but understanding its origins is the first step. Let's talk triggers. Overthinking doesn't just happen out of the blue. There are often underlying causes, specific situations, or even thought patterns that set it in motion. Recognizing these triggers is the first step in taking back control of your mind. Here are a few common things that often spark overthinking, acting like little catalysts in your brain. Uncertainty. Not knowing what's going to happen creates a mental itch your brain needs to scratch. When the future is unclear, our minds tend to fill in the blanks, often with worst-case scenarios. This can lead to endless loops of what-ifs and anxious speculation. It's like your brain is trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces, and it just keeps spinning its wheels. Perfectionism. If you expect yourself to get it right every time, your mind replays what went wrong, or might go wrong. The pursuit of flawlessness can be a major overthinking trap. When you set impossibly high standards, you're constantly scrutinizing your actions and judging yourself harshly. This creates a breeding ground for self-doubt and anxiety, fueling the overthinking cycle. Low self-esteem. If you doubt your worth, your brain overanalyzes everything you do. When you have a negative self-image, you're more likely to interpret events in a way that confirms your negative beliefs. You might dwell on perceived flaws, magnify mistakes, and constantly seek validation from others. This constant self-criticism can lead to a relentless stream of overthinking. Social rejection or embarrassment, these hit the same parts of the brain as physical pain. Your mind keeps revisiting it to try and make sense of what happened. Social interactions are complex, and when we experience rejection or embarrassment, it can trigger a cascade of overthinking. We replay the event, analyze every detail, and worry about what others think of us. This can lead to feelings of shame, isolation, and increased anxiety. And here's the twist. The more you overthink, the more likely you are to develop anxiety or depression, which then causes more overthinking. It's a vicious cycle, a self-perpetuating loop that can be difficult to break. Overthinking can exacerbate existing mental health conditions, and in turn, those conditions can fuel even more overthinking. It's like a mental hamster wheel that keeps spinning faster and faster. There are actually two distinct types of overthinking, each with its own focus and characteristics. Understanding these types can help you identify your own overthinking patterns and develop strategies to manage them. Ruminating, obsessing over the past, things you said, did, or should have done. It's like getting stuck in a time warp, constantly replaying past events and dwelling on regrets. Worrying, obsessing over the future. What might go wrong? What ifs? This type of overthinking is characterized by anxiety and fear about potential future outcomes. Both of these types hijack your focus, making it nearly impossible to be present in the moment. Whether you're dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, your mind is pulled away from the present reality. This can lead to a sense of disconnection and difficulty engaging in everyday activities. Fun fact, studies show that our minds are wandering nearly 47% of the time, and that makes us less happy. The more we think, the worse we often feel. It's a paradox, but it highlights the importance of mindfulness and being present in the moment. Ever been told to just stop overthinking? It's often delivered with the best intentions, but it lands with a thud, doesn't it? It doesn't help, right? In fact, it can sometimes make things worse, leaving you feeling even more stuck in your head. It's like telling someone to simply be happy when they're feeling down. It's an oversimplification that ignores the complexity of the situation. That's because telling the brain to think about something usually backfires spectacularly. It's a well-documented phenomenon called the white bear effect, named after a famous experiment by psychologist Daniel Wagner. The irony is palpable. If I tell you right now not to think about a white polar bear, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Exactly. A big, fluffy, white polar bear. The harder you try to think about it, the more persistent the image becomes. This highlights a fundamental challenge in controlling our thoughts. Suppression often amplifies them. Overthinking, much like the white bear effect, becomes a habit loop, a self-perpetuating cycle. The more you do it, the more automatic and ingrained it becomes in your daily life. Your brain, being the efficient machine that it is, builds and strengthens neural pathways that essentially hardwire overthinking as your default reaction to stress, anxiety, or even just a little bit of uncertainty. These pathways become like well-worn trails in a forest, making it easier and easier to fall into the same patterns of thought. But here's the good news, the empowering truth that I want you to really hear. Overthinking isn't a life sentence. It's not a permanent fixture of your personality. You absolutely train your brain to think differently, to forge new, healthier pathways. It takes conscious effort, consistent practice, and a willingness to challenge your existing thought patterns, but it's entirely achievable. Here's how. Name it to tame it. The very first step is cultivating awareness. Simply recognizing in the moment when you're spiraling into overthinking activates the prefrontal cortex, which is your rational decision-making brain. This part of your brain can then step in and help you regain control. It's like shining a light on a hidden corner of your mind. Interrupt the loop. Don't just sit there and let the thoughts consume you. Stand up, move your body, go for a short walk, stretch, or drink a glass of water. A physical change helps break the mental cycle by shifting your focus and disrupting the automatic flow of thoughts. It's a simple yet powerful way to regain control. Ask better questions. The questions you ask yourself determine the direction of your thoughts. Instead of dwelling on negative self-talk like, "Why did I mess that up?" which leads to a dead end, try reframing the question to something more constructive like, What can I learn from this experience? This shifts your focus from blame to growth. Limit decision time. Overthinking often stems from indecision. For simple, everyday decisions, implement the 2-minute rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. For bigger, more complex decisions, time block specific periods for focused consideration, preventing them from dragging on indefinitely. Practice mindfulness. Incorporate mindfulness techniques into your daily routine. Practices like deep breathing exercises, journaling to externalize your thoughts, or even guided meditation can significantly reduce mental noise and reconnect you to the present moment, grounding you in reality rather than hypothetical scenarios. And finally, remember this, above all else, overthinking isn't a flaw, a defect, or something to be ashamed of. It's often a sign of a powerful, analytical brain that simply needs direction, a bit of fine-tuning, and a healthy dose of self-compassion. You've got this. Overthinking is your brain's way of trying to protect you, but sometimes it goes too far. Understanding the psychology behind it gives you the power to take control. So next time your mind starts spiraling, remember, you're not broken, you're just human. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another insight into the psychology behind everything. Got a topic you're overthinking? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk it out.